Okay. Well, thank you guys all for attending our second in a series of Downtown Business Association seminars. We are very, very pleased to have with us here two principals of the Tax Pros. What they're going to talk about today are three hot topics, a lot of questions going out right now that to provide our members information on the stimulus checks that are coming out, the tax changes, and the SBA loan programs for small business 7A and 7B. My name is Chris Aiken. I'm from the Downtown Business Association Board. I'm very pleased to welcome Brenda Yecke. Brenda is a enrolled agent and a principal of Tax Pros. Brenda, if I could first ask you a question, what is an enrolled agent, and tell me what you do?
An enrolled agent is a tax professional who's passed a series of tests that the IRS puts out that kind of recognizes you as having a level of expertise. And we choose our words carefully because they don't like you to use certain ones. Authorized to practice in front of the IRS, and what that means is that if people need representation for audits, any of the things that might come your way where you'd need someone to sit with you with the IRS, enrolled agents are authorized to represent people in that process. So what I do day to day is a lot of personal and business tax preparation, just like we have for years at our office, but having achieved the enrolled agent status allows us to add that next level as well for representation for people who need that.
Well, perfect. And I know Vicki Wilson here is a fellow board member for me at the Downtown Business Association. I know everyone knows Vicki. I know Tax Pros has been such a great contributor to San Clemente, and I can tell you all the pro bono work you've done, Vicki, with us at DBA. Really appreciate it. Could you tell us a little bit about Tax Pros' relationship with San Clemente and a little bit more about Tax Pros before we get into the topic?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. We opened our doors 7 years ago. We're still in the same spot in downtown San Clemente at El Camino Real and Palazada. And yeah, we do personal and business tax returns, as Brenda mentioned. We also have a whole bookkeeping department, as well as we do payroll and other business services. We can help folks, proprietors, with entity setup. And certainly right now, a lot of people need help getting their bookkeeping cleaned up and set up to get their P&Ls for applying for these SBA loans and things like that. So we're one of the few tax places in town that's actually open year round. We are open 5 days a week, all year round, extended hours during tax season, but we'll talk about that later.
Yes, we're here on April 16th. It's a little bit of an unusual time, isn't it? Right?
Yeah,
it's still tax season.
Yes, it will still be tax season for 90 more days, apparently.
Exactly. Well, again, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. So we've gotten a lot of different questions from business owners and on these different areas. And if you'd indulge me, I'd like to ask some questions to you guys first on these areas. The first is the stimulus check that you guys can talk about. Can you please explain, one question is, who qualifies for this stimulus check right now?
Okay. These stimulus checks are based on people's personal tax returns. So it really is just an income and filing status qualifier. So if you're a single person filing as single, as long as your adjusted gross income is below $75,000, you qualify. If it goes over that amount, then there's a range where they chip away at it to where you no longer qualify once you're at $99,000. And that's for single or married filing separately. And then, basically had a household, there's another income range up to $112,000, and a married filing joint at $150,000 is where you start losing a little bit of the stimulus. Okay. So if you filed a 2018 or a 2019 tax return and fall into those income ranges, you're in line, you're qualified. Now, right there, I want to stop and say, anybody who hasn't filed their 19s yet, and once we became aware of the stimulus, we start looking at if your 2019 income came in to where you would lose some or all of the stimulus, but your 18 didn't, then let's time out on that 2019 they will judge you based on your 2018. Okay. And so, you know, try to be at least aware of that if you have time to be aware of that. Of course, the reverse happens too. If you didn't qualify based on your 2018s and you haven't filed your 19s yet, and you do qualify, then you're going to qualify at that time. Okay. To further stretch that commentary though, it is literally, we might as well address this right now. It is literally a tax credit for 2020. They're just making it available early. So yes, for all the people, it's a real question right now. Well, fine, I haven't, you know, 2019 was great. And then this happened and I lost my job or my business was shut down for a while. If your income drops in 2020, that would then qualify you for the stimulus, you're going to qualify in your 2020 tax return if you didn't based on 19 or 18.
Oh, okay. So how do people get their direct deposit information to the IRS?
Hopefully they already had it in there, but, and those are the people that are probably going to get it quickest. But the IRS, they're aware, obviously, the Treasury Department's aware that this is an issue. So if you want direct deposit and that wasn't part of your tax return submission, or I should say, if you owed money and you put in your direct debit information for that to come out of your, then they have it as well. But you can go on the IRS website. It just started becoming available within these past few days for you to go in and put in your information. If you, and it's not a bad idea to try. Why not? It should get you the money quicker. Those who are waiting for a check, it's going to be a while. You know, they are going to do direct deposits first. The estimates are that people who are waiting for a paper check may well not get it till the end of summer or early fall. Depending on, you know, how they prioritize things, et cetera, they can only process 5 million checks a week.
And they have to do 100 million of them.
Right. So, you know, and that is processing paper checks. And so I don't know how they're fully going to prioritize it. I hope it's not alphabetical because I'm at the end of the line. And you're at the beginning. Gosh.
I make no comment. I'll say nothing.
Right? I was always in the back of the class, darn it. But, you know, whatever their priorities are, and it could be something that is income driven. Like, are they getting out the lower income ranges first? You know, I don't know. It's all a guessing game at this point. But once they start doing those paper checks, whatever their process is, they're going to do 5 million a week. Where are you in that line? Good question. There will be people who won't get it till fall. So putting in direct deposit information is probably worthwhile if that speeds it up for you. That said, be prepared that it's glitchy right now. And it may not, you know, it may not go smoothly. You may have to keep trying.
But if but for my expectation though, for putting this in, I should expect that it could take to the fall, but hope for the best. Is that a fair?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we do know, as of yesterday, we were getting reports for people with direct deposit. Yes, some people have already gotten the money.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And Chris, I did want to say one more thing on that.
Yeah.
If this applies to anybody and anybody who's listening, you know, to their family members who might just be on Social Security only, and they don't normally file a tax return. Right. There's also a tab on irs.gov if you're a non-filer to put your information in there. Because if you haven't filed a tax return, if you're not required to, and you're not on Social Security, then you're not going to get it. So you need to go to this non-filer button and fill out your information there. And if you only get Social Security, you're automatically already in the system, and that should just flow to you. And again, whatever Brenda's saying, however they've laid out the timeline of who gets what when, but automatically, if all you get is Social Security, you're in.
Yep. So those people don't need to. Initially, they said those people need to file a tax return, and then there was enough of an outcry, justifiably so, that they said no. Social Security recipients, if that's all you have, and you don't normally have to file a tax return, you'll get it because of Social Security. It'll come in the way your Social Security does. Of course, that means the IRS gets to coordinate with the Social Security Administration as to get that information together. So again, where are they in the pipeline? Great question. But they will get it. It will come to them.
And just to kind of follow up on something you said before, just kind of trick as far as what you qualify for as far as when you want to file your 2018 and 2019 tax return, right? So, and so right now, what's the deadline right now? It's in July, right? I'm sorry, I'm not as much of a tax person, so I apologize my ignorance. But what's the deadline now? And because I know there's this little trick right now, so you try to qualify for your stimulus check.
The new deadline to be considered filed on time is July 15th.
Okay.
They just automatically moved it 3 months.
Okay. There's been an issue come up as relates to, I guess what they call an advance or tax credit. I know we talked a little bit about that offline. Can you explain what that means and what an advance is and tax credit and how they relate right now?
Sure. Yep. It is a tax credit, and in effect, it's a refundable credit. And I make that statement because I think the confusion with people is that when certain things have happened in the past and there's been some sort of an economic stimulus reaction by the federal government, it's varied as to how they've done it. And yes, there's been times where they're like, oh, well, it's a reduction of tax and we're giving it to you now, but shoot, you might have to pay it back later. This is not supposed to function that way. It is a tax credit. And I'm going to use the word, it's a refundable credit. And so I want people to think of it, if you get the child tax credit and there's a piece of it that's called the additional child tax credit that you get as a refund if you didn't use it all somewhere else on your tax return, that's just money that's free to you. It is as if you paid it into the system. It is as if, just like your withholdings. So that's why it's refundable to you. Or if people who've gotten the earned income credit, that is a refundable tax credit. And I know I've fielded a number of questions of people going, well, if I get it now, but then when I go to, because it is a 2020 tax credit, they're just sending it out early based on your past, on your filing past. You've qualified by your past. So what if in 2020, I don't qualify in 2020, do they make me pay it back? And no, you've already got it. You're not going to have to pay it back. Just like if people qualify for the earned income credit and they get it by filing this year, if their income goes up next year, they don't look back and say, well, now you got to pay back what you got in the past. It's supposed to function that the money comes now and it is not taxable income and you're not going to have to pay it back.
So let's talk about the stimulus checks. If you get a stimulus check, well, let's say you owe it a debt. There's different debts that are owed. Can that stimulus check be attached in any way, or how does that work? If you owe a debt, you're getting money, can it be attached?
Right. They have stated clearly that if you owe back taxes, you will still get your stimulus check. They will not take it from you to pay your back taxes. Okay. Which people who are normally getting a refund, if I get a refund this year, but I owe from last year, they will keep my refund. This they won't for that. The one thing they've said that it will be kept for is if anyone owes back child support, they will keep it for that. And then we are hearing concern and warnings, not with the government taking it, but if there are people who are in some debt collection process where something has gone to the level of a private debt collector where they can go into your bank account and take things, that is an occurrence that could happen. Governors are asking the Treasury Department to make an edict that they shouldn't be able to do that, but that has not happened yet. So I think they're trying to put out their general warnings. You're probably seeing this in the news sources now. Uh-oh, debt collectors might maybe take your stimulus. That would happen only if someone's at that level and that debt collector has some sort of ability to go into your bank account after the stimulus arrives. So that's a real individual situation. If someone does have that going on, they probably need to kind of think about how to deal with that. And we'll see if the governors can put enough pressure on the Treasury Department to declare that shouldn't be done.
Okay. Well, those are the questions that I've been getting from businesses as far as stimulus checks. Is there any other questions that you've gotten down at Tax Pros that you want people to know about stimulus checks before we get over to some of the tax changes?
Yeah, if I may, because again, since it started arriving yesterday to some people, and we've said it's either your 18s or your 19s right now that will qualify you. For people who haven't filed 19 yet, a number of them have gone to the website, the IRS website, because there is a tab there to say, you know, what about my stimulus? Do I qualify? We're finding right now, again, it's glitchy. I tried to look at my own because my 19s haven't been processed yet. And the IRS website said, kind of, we can't find you. We don't know. We don't know if you're, it was a statement that basically said, we're not sure you're qualified right now. So please, again, be patient with that. I swear to you, if you fell within these income ranges in 18 and you haven't filed 19, you are qualified. You might not just be showing up in the system yet. So patience. And obviously, you know, if you can get your 19s filed, they are saying, advising to file now if you can. And if that would speed things up, it's probably a good idea.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so if we could, why don't we get into some of the, I guess, some of the tax changes that's come from our situation here. I think you talked about, so the new deadline is July 15th?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Now,
Chris,
yes.
I would like to say that was kind of an automatic extension for everybody. You know, a lot of times people will file an extension before April 15th that takes them till October 15th to file. And this just gave everybody, all it did was move the needle from April 15th to July 15th for the regular tax filing deadline. Mm-hmm. If you still want that extra time to October, you still need to file an extension before July 15th. For those extra 3 months. So keep that in mind. And always remember, when you file an extension, this year aside, if you file for the extension by July 15th to October 15th, it's just an extension of time to file, not pay if you owe. So
estimated tax payments. Okay, so how do estimated tax payments work with all that? I think that's what you're talking about, Vicki, right?
No.
Are you talking about something different?
Yeah, I'm talking about like your regular tax, like you file your 2019 tax returns, and you're like, oh shoot, I owe.
Okay. You still have to pay.
So I just want to file an extension and I'll pay later. It's like, no, you have to pay now, but you can file later.
Got it.
So, yeah, and that's part of the labyrinth of IRS penalties. There's a bucket of them that they charge. If you file your tax return late and owe money, that's a penalty.
Sure.
So filing an extension, that's what it gets you out of. I filed late and I owe money penalty. There are penalties for paying late. There are penalties for paying too little on estimates, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So that, you know, people are automatically good through July 15th about filing on time, and they've extended the time to pay, but I still warn people that remember there are several penalties the IRS charges. So in other words, if I'm the self-employed person who should have been doing estimates all through 2019 and I didn't, and I owe a big fee, there still is a penalty that's probably going to come in there, but the one penalty that's technically called late payment, they're not going to charge, and they're not going to charge the interest, which is incredibly rare. The IRS normally says by law, we must charge interest. So that is an edict from the Treasury Department. It's not a decision the IRS could have made, because by law, they normally have to charge interest.
But okay. Isn't it true that California is going to start the interest meter as of yesterday?
Yes, California has not forgiven the interest. They will not charge a penalty for late payment, but the interest meter is running.
Okay, so you still got to pay. So California is not being as forgiving right now.
On the interest, right, that one element, you can pay late, you can file late or by July, but the interest meter is running. Okay. The clarification, the estimated payments, because they have shifted that too, okay? If I'm supposed to be making estimates for 2020, because I'm self-employed, they have given extra time for that as well. July 15th for the first and second quarter.
And I understand you still have to pay your quarterly sales tax on time.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Oh, you do, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So for your business, if you're still conducting business, and you would have had sales tax from July, right, or from January and February and part of March, they haven't moved the deadline for that.
Okay. Okay. Can you, it's more of a global question that I'm sure you, is what would you say is any other changes that you've seen due to this COVID-19? I mean, maybe it's what any other changes in or taxes or anything else you've seen from questions you got at Tax Pros? Other things you could comment on.
Yeah, there are a couple of other changes, and of course they're talking about more, so that's one of the stay tuned and see. But I feel like those things are sort of in the second car of the train as a consideration. They absolutely have already said that people who are retired and have required minimum distributions, that you kind of don't have to take it for 2020. Again, a small slice of the population who'll go, yeah, I really would rather not take my required minimum distribution from my IRA, and I just want it to stay in there and invested. So that's new, it's a new wrinkle. But for business people, the one thing to say, and it will be something as after we get through all that you might have to handle now, then look back and say, is this going to be a benefit to me? Net operating losses for anyone who had them in 18 or 19, meaning you either are new to business and you had a net operating loss to start, or maybe you made some major, expansions and generated a net operating loss in your business, and or you had carryover from the past. In the tax law changes that we started dealing with in 2018, the recent ones, that changed how net operating losses were dealt with. In other words, we used to be able to take 100% of them, and you had a choice if you moved them backwards and amended some tax returns, or if you moved them forward. And with the 2018 tax law, they said you can only take them forward, and they can only wipe out 80% of your income if you have income from other sources. So that was a change. Then they've they've said now, as a break for people who were dealing with that they're giving you some time to actually do it the old way is sort of my just sort of basic way of saying that. So all I'll say at this point, instead of saying the details of what they're going to offer to you, if you've been having net operating losses and they existed for you in 2018 or 2019, talk to your tax professional and see if that's something that can be relooked at, if it's something that you can amend some back returns and actually get some cash back, or what your best game plan is for that. Obviously, I caution people that if you're amending returns, you're going to wait a whole long time for that to get processed and to get that money back. And again, it doesn't have to be job one right now. Just plant that in your brain if you have that situation and know that you should address that.
A really sad, obviously, hot topic right now is unemployment. The unemployment numbers are staggering. We all know this, but is unemployment taxable? How does that all work?
Right. Unemployment is considered a replacement of wages. And so, yes, it is taxable on your federal tax return. Now, on the state tax returns, again, all states can function a little differently. So let's just answer for California. California does not tax unemployment income. So whatever, though, all those millions of people who are starting to receive unemployment, it is something that you will get taxed on it on your federal tax return. So you don't be surprised by that it adds into that, but you're okay on California.
Brenda, what about the extra $600? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that
yes,
calculated in that?
That is, yeah, it doesn't, there's the state base, whatever you qualify for. And then for some time frame, the federal government is kicking in an extra $600 for people on unemployment. It'll be the whole amount. If I'm receiving that, the whole thing counts on the federal tax return. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Part of the, unfortunate reality of what we're going through is that's basically put the entire workforce to go home. I'm an attorney. I'm working from home. This is where I'm working. What can you advise businesses and our listeners as it relates to what they can write off from home? Because now it's very real. What can you advise on that subject?
Yes, for the self-employed, we've always had that ability, if we're working from home, to have that as a write-off on our business income. Whether you're a sole proprietor or you're some sort of entity, there are ways to do that. But for a lot of business people, who have a shop or a office that you've probably worked from, you maybe haven't been taking that home office deduction. You're going to look at that for 2020. There's some time frame where you are going to be able to say, this was my office space. I can take some fraction of my mortgage interest, property taxes, utility bills, internet, that sort of thing. So it should be something that the self-employed definitely look at an element of when they file their tax returns. The people who are working from home and getting wages, not a lot you can do there. That got eliminated. Unreimbursed employee expenses at the federal level, that was with the 2018 tax law changes, is no longer available to you. If those are some really big costs that add up to enough, they always needed to add up to enough where you could take them. But it is still available on the state tax return. The states changed very little about how they did business, even though the federal tax laws had massive changes in 2018. So I suppose it's slightly possible for people to get some sort of a break on their state tax return as a waged employee working from home. It just has to add up to enough. And it's a conversation to have when the time comes.
Okay, well, thank you. It's great. Before we start turning over to SBA loans, there's any other questions or comments you'd like to give us as it relates to the topic of tax changes, the questions that your clients and tax pros are getting, any other information you'd like to share before we get to the SBA loans?
I'm trying to think. I don't.
Yeah.
Nothing's popping. I think you've been pretty thorough.
Good.
But
Okay.
it is an evolving situation, that's for sure. So I guess what I'd say is, people who do have questions, the IRS website is evolving rapidly to try and address a lot of things, and they're making more and more available in Q&As. You cannot get through to talk to anybody at the IRS these days. They literally are not picking up the phone, and they haven't been for a month. So, but they are trying to make their website as nimble as possible to answer questions and to respond and to create opportunities for people to do some of the things that now you may need to do. So that's really good. And you know what? I'm actually going to give the IRS a plug for all of us who are frustrated with them right now. And we have reasons often to be frustrated, but they too have people working from home. They are, going through the same shifts, but they're processing millions of tax returns and millions of stimulus checks. And the fact that a lot of people got their money yesterday, that's amazing. They are strained to the limits, but pushing forward. So, continue to deal with whatever frustrations you have with a lot of these processes, but, a lot of great things are happening too. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So as far as SBA loans, can you give us a little background and the difference of the two SBA loan programs we keep hearing about?
Yeah, and I'm going to preface my beginning by saying, as of this morning, actually, one of the programs was cut off, like you can't even apply for it anymore, which is the SBA 7B loan, which was the EIDL, the Economic Impact Disaster Loan. We had a client come in this morning, wanted us to help him fill out the application online, and we went to the site and it said, sorry, we're not taking any applications right now. So I know a lot of people are, it's in the news right now, it's out of money. Both the programs we wanted to talk about today, they're saying they're out of money. Although it might be spoken for, just maybe hasn't been supplied just yet. So before I talk about the difference between the two, what I'd like to say is don't be discouraged. Obviously, we also hearing in the news that they're working mightily to try to get another boost of money into that particular program so that more businesses have an opportunity to get to the table. So there was two different loans available. We did also have a client who did sign up for their PPP this morning, which is one of the loans I'll talk about through Wells Fargo. But again, every bank is different. So there were two loans that were available, the SBA 7B, which I said was the EIDL loan. And that one you would go to sba.gov and you could fill out an application to get that one. And as with both of the programs, they seem to have changed hourly and daily, and they were trying to roll stuff out, and it was confusing, nobody understood, and then they would change the rules and blah blah blah. But anyway, long and the short of it, the EIDL is an actual SBA loan that comes with a interest rate and a payback time period, and that one you could get, you had to put in for how much money you wanted to get on this loan. And it was based on your gross receipts and then your cost of goods sold,
Your profit.
for your profit and loss for your business.
Yeah.
So just be on the lookout for that one to come back, but make sure you have your profit and loss statement ready for your business. When that comes back online, you're going to want to jump right back in and have your information in front of you. So if you haven't done that yet, if you still have a bag of receipts sitting over in the corner of your office, I would highly encourage you to find some help getting those P&Ls put together so that you're ready when the next round comes, because everybody feels pretty certain another round is coming. So that was the 7B loan. And then there was this loan everybody knows referred to as the PPP, which was the Payroll Protection Program. That's the 7A loan. And that one was for businesses that the point of it was to keep paying employees, whether that you were still open and the employees were working, or whether your doors were closed and you were just paying your employees their regular salary to try to keep the economy going, right? That was part of the goal, and to keep people off of unemployment. Now, in certain cases, because the unemployment might be sweeter to a furloughed employee or a laid off employee than the paycheck they were receiving, it might be tough to actually get them to take the money from you for the payroll. But the Payroll Protection Program was an SBA loan, but the money was coming through banking relationships. So Wells Fargo, B of A, Chase, local community banks, Farmers and Merchants Bank here locally in San Clemente, I know is one of them as well. And so again, that program seems to be sort of cut off at the moment, but be prepared so that when it rolls back up again, you're going to your bank, but that you have a banking relationship with. They're always saying that's the first place you should start, but they will not take in-branch applications. It all is online. So log into your banking account online and just keep looking for the tab. When can I apply? When can I apply? When can I apply? And they all have different rules about what they want. I mean, it's pretty much a mess. I've been studying this for several weeks now, and talking to so many different business owners that bank with all these different entities. So I have some really good insider information about what each of them wants, how their process works. So it's just, I know it's been super frustrating for everybody, but the PPP loan is a totally forgivable loan if you're spending 75% of it on payroll. And of course you have to document that and everything. And the amount of that loan is 2.5 times the average monthly payroll for the prior year. Those were the two different loans. And, unfortunately right now they both seem to be sort of on a timeout until the officials in Washington can get their heads together and pump some more money into that program.
So what happened today, to understand, is the funding out today? Are they taking a break? I guess it sounds like this is brand new. So what kind of guidance have they given?
They're saying that the amount of money that was put into those programs has been spoken for.
Okay.
So they've accumulated enough applications to eat up all the money, but I know a few people who have gotten a little bit of money from both, but I think we were on a call with someone yesterday who said they think maybe 4% of the loans have actually been funded. So,
patience also is the word for this program as well.
Yeah, think about the millions of small businesses across the country who were applying for a limited pool of money, and and they were defining small business. You could ask for up to $10 million. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know what small business that is.
Yeah, I don't either.
My opinion is they should have limited it to true small businesses,
Right.
10 employees or less, but
Right.
they didn't ask me. So,
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the feedback is patience, keep checking in
yes.
back through the portal, for lack of better words. How much, have you heard any war stories? Does the banking relationship help, or how do you?
Yes. And this is just, the reality is that it seems like from feedback we're getting, some of the smaller regional banks have been more nimble with this. The larger banks each came on at their different pace. I mean, I think we heard Bank of America was one of the early ones to open up their portal. Wells Fargo was kind of a little later opening it, but the fact that each of them asked for something a little different, and they're maybe organizing themselves a little differently. Initially, we were hearing that Bank of America, you might have been a business client for them with 30 years, but you had no loans in place with them. They were prioritizing people who already had loans with them. There was frustration with that. So that, war stories surrounding that. And again, I'm sure, hopefully they'll move quickly to pump more money into the system to restart these things. And hopefully the complaints and the critiques of each of these institutions will also help them to sort of shake out and do a more fair process if people are perceiving unfairness, from their bank. In the end, they just need more money in the system so that everybody could qualify for it. Every institution is going to organize themselves however, and I'm going to feel, well, how come I'm in the back of the line if that's where I end up? And in the end, we've got to push our representatives, say it's critical that they get more money into the system. I think I want to sidestep here a little bit though and say, we talked about Payroll Protection Act as replacing wages. I do want all those sole proprietors, LLCs, people who don't issue W-2 wages to anybody, but as a self-employed person, you are eligible to tell our self-employed people is apply for everything you can, 2 SBA things and unemployment. Why not? Each of them is their own process and each of them are frustrating. Start working on it. Mm-hmm. And the unemployment, it was only, I think, April 10th that people who were self-employed were able to start applying for unemployment. So don't overlook any one of those 3 avenues. You may get one of them, you may get, I don't know what you're going to get, but try. Other things they have out there that you didn't ask about, but there are some secondary things that if you're paying payroll wages to someone, that you can get some kind of a break on some of the tax withholdings you have to pay into the system. That is something though we're telling people, really that's a secondary consideration, because if I go to that program, it eliminates the PPP from consideration. So that's why we're saying try those 3 things first. There may be some secondary things on some of your quarterly tax withholdings that ultimately might benefit you if you don't get these other things.
Forgivability, can you explain again the forgivability of the PPP loan and how that works? You said it was like 75%. Could you, I kind of want to follow up on that. Maybe Vicki, you were talking about that before, as far, maybe re-explain how that becomes forgivable and how that works.
Right. So again, the purpose of it was to keep payroll going. So as there's going to be documentation that you have to provide that you did do that. But as long as you spend 75% of whatever amount of money you get that goes towards payroll in the PPP, then that portion is forgivable. 75% of the money you get is totally forgivable. You don't have to pay it back. It just was free money, right? Yep. The other 25% you can use towards rent, utilities, any mortgage debt service. Like say you were you own the building where your storefront was or something like that. And you have mortgage debt that you're servicing on that. And as long as you document all of that, the entire PPP loan can be forgivable. but only if 75% of the money you receive is being spent towards payroll.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And really, if you end up not doing that, it's a 1% loan for 2 years with no payments for 6 months. So, you know, whatever. I mean,
Apply.
that's
Yeah. No,
so,
I know. Okay. I know you mentioned the IRS website. There are other good, I guess, some resources, obviously going to you guys as a primary resource, other resources out there that like the business to know to kind of check on updates and kind of follow the bouncing ball with all this stuff?
yeah, I mean, the Treasury website actually has some really great information on there, as well as SBA.gov, right? Because they're going to be updating. And frankly, it would be a lot longer process, and depending on what your needs were, but you can go for a full-on SBA loan as well.
Right.
You know, a regular SBA loan, you know, if these other little sort of interim loans don't work out. The Franchise Tax Board, ftb.ca.gov, I think is, or something like that. Yeah, is their website.
California Franchise Tax Board.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's mostly it.
Yeah, mostly.
So I'd say go to the source. There's a lot of good articles out there right now being put out by a lot of the business publications and stuff too, that can, they usually do a good job of translating IRS speak into English, that we have a better chance of understanding. But it's pretty important probably to go to the source as much as you can.
Yeah, and for unemployment, EDD,
right?
The EDD website would be a good one. Yeah, so I don't know. Those are a lot of the hot topics we're sure getting our phones burning up about. So,
well, those are the I guess those are the questions we got from our businesses. Is there any other, I guess, maybe some final comments you guys want to talk about? Some advice, some messages you want to give the businesses?
You know, forgive the terminology, but let us recognize we are in the middle of a disaster. And that sort of disaster response mode, I mean, sure, there's plenty of people who are okay and they're doing fine, but as a nation, we're in the middle of a disaster, and as a state. And so it matters to recognize what our first, second, and third steps need to be and be very focused on that. You know, anybody who's in these situations where they need some money, they need some help. And I know everybody's been doing that, but I think it's important to recognize that is what we're in the middle of. And so don't let other things take you away from what some of those critical focuses need to be right now. Prioritize that response. My years ago disaster training always said, when you're in the middle of a disaster, start where you stand and figure that out. Where do I stand? What is my next step? If I have to organize more things to get ready to go after that, then I need to do that now. Start right where I stand. Okay.
Well, I appreciate that. Appreciate that.
That's great.
Well, I just want to thank you guys for joining us. Again, thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Vicki, from the Tax Pros. Tax Pros are over off of El Camino. Sorry, I'll give you a little plug here. What's your address there in El Camino at the Tax Pros? 439
North El Camino Real at Palizada.
At Palizada. So I just want to really thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. It's some fantastic information, and look forward to talking to you guys soon.
Awesome.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks everybody, and hang in there. We can get through this together.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Take care.